Hello, we are Group C1 and we are going to talk about the seventh emperor of the Han Dynasty, Han Wudi. And this is our group members. This is our content and it includes 6 parts. Now let's welcome Cristiano to give us a short introduction of the political power.
Hello, I'm Cristiano. Now I am going to introduce some Empire Han's personal information. His real name is Liu Che. He born on 14th July 156 BC and died on 29th March 87 BC. He lived for 70 years. I have to say he is one of the longest lived empires in China history. His body buried in Maoling, and his posthumous title is Empire Xiaowu. He is one of the best empires in China history with no doubt. In political, he created system of 中外朝, system of 刺史, promulgates 推恩令, strengthening autocracy and centralization. In economy, he casting the 5 wealth money, and he let the government monopolizes the management of salt, iron, and wine, in order to suppress the power of rich businessmen. He also created 6 firsts, unify his force with conversations, found Taixue to train talents, expand China's territory, open the western region and open up the Silk Road, reach title to day and criticize himself in the form of an imperial edict. He is not only a politician, but also a poet. He has a lot of poems, such as 胡子歌, 天马歌, and 倒立妇人赋. They are highly praised by poetic theorists. I think his later years was his taint. He believed in magic extravagance, so led to the ruling crisis, and then the evil of witchcraft 巫蛊之祸 broke out. After that, he was frustrated by foreign expansion and issued the 文台诏. The last thing is his family. His father was Empire Hanjin, whose name is Liu Qi. His mother was Wang Zhi, who was the second queen of Empire Hanjin. He had 2 queens and 8 imperial concubines. He had 6 sons and 6 daughters. His last son, whose name is Liu Fulin, was the next empire who was Empire Hanzhao. Here is the question. Empire Han did a lot of things. So which thing you think that is the best? My answer is open the western regions and open up the Silk Road is the best. Because he built up a good relationship with outside world. Thank you. Let's welcome the next groupmates.
Hello everyone, my name is Demo and I will talk about the next part. My part is meaning to introduce some important events of Empire Han Wu. As we all know, Empire Wu of the Han Dynasty has experienced many important events in his life. I have chosen 4 of them that have far-reaching influence on later generations to give you an introduce. The first important thing I choose is, well, as we all know, Empire Wu of the Han Dynasty carried out the policy of ban from hundred philosophers, venerate Confucianism, and we also call it 罢黜百家，独尊儒术. And here is another important thing. In October of the first year of Jianyuan, Emperor Han Wu asked the senior officials to recommend the virtual people. At the same time, Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty found Deng Zhongshu. Dong Zhongshu put forward the idea of respecting Confucianism. It's very important. So he drew Hanwudi up some policy like this is one of the best important, back from hundreds of philosophers venerate Confucianism. This is one of the important aspects for Emperor Wu of Han Dynasty to strengthen the centralization of power. So the most important effect of respecting Confucianism is to contribute greatly to the stability and unity of the country. The second great event there in the region is Han Wudi. He cut off his marriage with Hu and fought with them to expand their territory. We all know that in the past, the Han Dynasty chose the policy of making peace with the Hu for sake of peace, just use hostage. But hostage is a kind of political marriage between the rulers of a central prevailing dynasty and other nationalities or regions countries for various purposes. The policy of hostage has always been an important policy of the Han Dynasty to avoid war and develop steadily. However, the whole country continued to attack the Han Dynasty border. In order to stabilize the border, the empire decided to send troops to attack the Hus. This fight had a very important effect. In fact, this fight against Xiongnu and made it impossible for the Xiongnu to fight against the Han Dynasty for 50 years, maintaining the peace of the frontier and expanded territory of Han Dynasty and achieved stability. It's very important. And the third great event there in the region, we all know that Emperor Han Wu first opened the western regions and established the Silk Road. As a Chinese, we all proud of it. Emperor Han Wu sent Zhang Qian to the western regions 2 times. The significant event is that it promoted the communication between China and the West. Chinese handcrafts flowed to the western regions, and the special products of the western region, such as grapes, carrots, vines, and camels, went to China. The most important thing is to establish a Silk Road that has been handed down to this day, which has a high historical significance. The fourth great events during the region as true is Emperor Han Wu established the region title. He was the first emperor to use the region title. The region title is a kind of name used by Chinese feudal dynasties to record the years. In addition to that, it also means praising and changing dynasty. The region title is the name of the emperor chronology, a symbol of the new times, from the founding of Emperor Wu of Han Dynasty to the end of Qin Dynasty. More than 800 years were used. It lasted more than 2,500 years and had an important influence. And so, I have introduced 4 important things that happened during the region of Han Wu of the Han Dynasty. And here is my question. Let's think about which event has the greatest impact on our life now. It's an open question. All the answers can be acceptable. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, now the part is the major theme. In order to accurately grasp the major theme of Han Wudi, my starting point is the posthumous title of Han Wudi, that is Wu. As we all know, posthumous titles are used to highly summarize the life of a historical figure. In Chinese, 刚强理直曰武，威将敌得曰武. That means when dealing with foreign enemies and when the king defends the frontier, he is unyielding and defends the line. I think this is the major theme of Han Wudi. As our team told before, Han Wudi defeated the Hans, subdued sourced venom, and established good relations with the western regions. From the comparison of the territory between Jin and Han, we could say that Han Wudi's series of actions greatly expanded the territory of China. Therefore, Wu is the major theme of Han Wudi, I think. If we have to talk about other themes of Han Wudi, I think there are two other aspects. One is that at the beginning of Han Wudi's taking over, he has some cultural ideas, and he chose to abandon Huanglao theory and turn it into Confucianism, which also provided the guiding ideology for his ruling. The other is that at the end of Han Wudi's war, on the one hand, the war expanded the territory, but on the other hand, it also created the national treasury and pity. Han Wudi began a series of economic reforms, which also had a great impact on later China. But in fact, we found that both the country reform and the economic reform of Han Wudi were for a better war. Therefore, we believe that the major theme of Han Wudi is just one word, that is Wu. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaohang. My name is Liu Snow, and you can call me Nova. Now I'm going to talk about the fourth part, associated organizations under the rule of Han Wudi. First is a government organization called Zhongchao, also called Neichao, during the reign of Emperor Han Wudi. To strengthen the imperial power, Han Wudi selected intimate people such as Shangshu, Changshi to form the decision-making team, Zhongchao. Officials of the Zhongchao enjoyed greater freedom of access to the imperial palace and were able to serve the emperor and work in the palace. They obeyed the emperor directly and could deal with the affairs of the government, so that's say they had real power. The opposite of Zhongchao is Waichao. It was an administrative body headed by the prime minister. After Han Wudi took power, he took measures to cut down the power of the prime minister and gradually excluded him from the cone of central decision-making team. Compared with Zhongchao, Waichao could not enter the palace at will, and it was obstructed by Zhongchao because of the decision of the emperor. But why did emperor transfer the real power of government from the Waichao to the Zhongchao? It gives us the reasons. The first is that the power of the prime minister was too big before. Sometimes the prime minister was very rude to the emperor. The emperor felt that his imperial power was threatened, so he needed to cut down the rights of the prime minister. Another reason is that the ranks of officials in Zhongchao were low. These were humble men, whom the emperor could change at will, so Zhongchao had no threat to the imperial power. All in all, it was used by Han Wudi to strengthen the imperial power. The next one is Taixue, the highest educational institution in the country, which was located in Chang'an. Establishing Taixue was put forward by Deng Zhongshu, who was a supporter of Confucianism. Taixue was used to train officials. It offered courses of some ancient books such as Shi Jing, Zuo Zhuan, and mainly for Confucianism. Taixue played an important role in spreading culture. As for the military, The emperor was still the supreme military commander, and he controlled the entire army through two central military institutions. The first institution is Central Guard, composed of 郎中令, 卫备, 中尉, and so on. The second one is the highest military administrative body in the country, composed of 太尉, generals, etc. We can also divide the Central Guard into the South Army and the North Army. The South Army protected the palace, while the North Army was responsible for daily guard. And the highest military administrative body was only responsible for the military administration. It didn't have the right to order the corps. For the regional military, in the country and township, the regional governor was specifically responsible for all military operations in the country, directly in charge of the local army, whose power was very heavy. And for the dependent countries, which are some national minorities, in addition to the 属国都尉, who was the highest officer of dependent countries, there were also some temporary officials called 直接都护 sent by the central government to manage the regional military. Now let's welcome Ke Si-yun, my group mate, to introduce the fifth part.
Well, thank you, Nova. I am Garfield introducing the key individuals in the era of Emperor Wu. We understand that there are a huge amount of celebrities in the era of Emperor Wu, from the important officials in the central government to the famous general in the battlefield. However, in concern of the limited time of this presentation, we only choose two persons that we believe they are typical and vital for this era. They are Dong Zhongshu and Zhang Qian. Let's firstly talk about Dong Zhongshu, who was the politic or what we call a political scientist in the reign of Emperor Wu. As I endorsed here, he was born in Hebei, where is the Yellow River Delta we had acknowledged. He had entered the government before Wudi became emperor. He later became an important official in the reign of Emperor Wu. I would suggest that he is significant and vital because his political proposal influenced the emperor, shaped the way that the country runs. It even influenced the later dynasties for thousands of years. That is in detail the promotion of Confucianism by Dong Zhongshu. And according to my record, Emperor Wu firstly get his full power in 135 BC after the emperor's dowager, also known as his mother, passed away. Promotion of Confucianism, it happened in 127 BC. Then, as I endorsed in this page, you may aware that Dong Zhongshu persuaded the Emperor Wudi only to approve Confucianism as the guidelines of running his country, but dismiss all other theories. We will suggest that this method significantly shaped the way that the emperor ran his territories, and, meanwhile, motivated Confucianism for further development. Meanwhile, I'd like to remind you that before Dong Zhongshu raised his suggestion, the emperor think highly of Taoism instead of Confucianism, and after Emperor Wudi, most later emperors used Confucianism as guidance to rule their countries. That's why we say it influenced the later dynasties. The next person we are talking about will be Zhang Qian. He was born in Shanxi, approximately 164 BC. However, the date is not fixed. He was a diplomat of the Han Dynasty and accomplished the first diplomatic journey to the West in 138 BC. You may know that the original purpose of his diplomatic journey is believed to have Han and Yue united to fight against Xiongnu. However, we know he failed to do so. but we all know his journey objectively broadened people's view. For example, he brought or introduced new plants like sesame, grape, etc. to Han Dynasty. We know Zhang Qian is actually not a so-called power holder of Han Wudi's era, but it's a global perspective leaded by his journey that we think highly of. That's the reason why we choose to introduce this person as a key individual. Before I end my part and give my time back to the other group mates, I also hope you understand that such kind of Confucianism promotions is sometimes considered as suppressing freedom of thought. As I remarked in this page, many scholars believe that the so-called Confucianism is just a Confucianism outlook with legalist hearts instead of a kind of pure Confucianism. I will not explain more concerning this due to the space limitation and time limitation, but this is for your further research if you are interested. So we come to a question that how do you think of the negative influence of the Confucianism owning theory by Dong Zhongshu? If you have any opinions regarding the question or have any queries in concern of the key individual parts, please be free to let me know via my mailbox. Now I'll yield my time back to Nova, and she will introduce the Wudi's relationship with Macau or Southern China, and she will also present a brief conclusion to our presentation. Thank you for your attention to the key individual parts.
Thanks, Garfield. In the last part, we will talk about some comments of Han Wudi and his relationship to Macau. Han Wudi promoted economic development, laying the foundation for the prosperity of the Han Dynasty. In the military aspect, he expanded the territory from all directions. He also discerned hundreds of thoughts, only respecting Confucianism. And for the most important thing is that he centralized his power, making Han Dynasty become the first peak of the development of China's feudal dynasty. In ancient time, Macau belonged to Nanyue country. Han Wudi defeated Nanyue country and established court here. After that, Han culture spread widely in the area. And also this action further promoted ethnic integration. This defeat of Nanyue country is important in the long course of the history because it makes the Pearl River Delta become the hub and gathering center of the maritime Silk Road in the Han Dynasty. This has profound effect for the present too. That's all our presentation. Thanks for listening.